defensive coordinator when you face a team twice, maybe than it would be for an offensive coordinator?
You know, I haven't really given much thought to that angle. I mean, I think, you know, what you can't do is get so wrapped up in the first game and say that okay, these are the 10 things that you're going to see, and this is how they attacked you. So obviously that's how they're going to attack you this coming weekend. And so in any event, you got to use those as data points. You got to put that in your breakdowns as if they were playing against somebody else. And obviously it's good video because they're attacking you. But no, I would limit it to that. You know, you use it, but make sure you don't get so engulfed in it that it kind of can paralyze you.
Is there a fear that you can, like you said, just said the word paralysis by analysis? The guys think too much about that game?
Well, I think you got to protect against that. And I think as coaches, you got to say, okay, well that if you analyze it to the nth degree and say, okay, they try to attack us here, let's eliminate this. Okay, what issue did we just create? Great, we eliminated this or supposed issue. What did we just buy? That kind of the unknown. And so I think it comes back down to us again. It's part of the study. We'll obviously use it as they will, and work to have a great week of preparation.
Statistically, you guys are really having a good season in the Big 12 Conference. I know that you're not where you want to be, but still, is there some satisfaction that this defense has improved? Throughout the year, and it's become a pretty good defense.
Oh, I think so. I mean, the number, what you ultimately are trying to get done is get a W every single Saturday. Yeah. That's first on the goal board, and beyond that, you're certainly trying to limit points. We can do a better job of that. Every statistical category, the minute you bring them up, you say we can do better. But certainly from where we started back in January, and this conversation is more for the off season. But where we started in January to where we are now, certainly proud of the progress. But we got another major challenge this week.
Can you watch the film of Baylor? Can you overemphasize? I mean, would it be overemphasis if you said, okay, you were saying you did this bad on the first half, this good in the second half? How do you go about doing that without, I guess, creating too much confidence over watching the second half and, I guess, too much negativity in the first half?
Well, I think what you do is you don't break it down that way. It's one play, it's a personnel grouping, it's a formation against a particular front and call, and limit it there, and so you don't get the context of when it is, when's the flow of the game. You don't watch it in game sequence. You don't, just as we wouldn't watch the game sequence of them against Texas or them against KU. Again, it's personnel groupings, it's formations, it's plays, and leave it there.
How tough is that, though, Alex, to watch it with fresh eyes and block out what you experience, like being like a jury being told disregard this?
Well, but you got 13 weeks of doing just that. I mean, now you don't have the personal, emotions attached to it. When it's opponent video, but believe me, it initiates a reaction when you see a deep ball caught on anybody's defense, because you say that you immediately go into that could be us. Well, unfortunately, there's a couple clips that it is us. But no, yeah, that's part of the gig. It's something that you have to do, and believe me, you get too wrapped up in that, and somehow again attach feelings to your week of preparation based on past, regardless of opponent. It's fool's gold.
Have you ever experienced playing another team? I guess that close.
Yeah, the Big Ten championship game last year did not have it. 2 SEC championship games where they were not crossover games in that particular conference. So it goes way back to some playoff football and back to my years at New Hampshire. So no, I mean it obviously can happen in every conference, and it's sure to happen in ours. And so it is unique, and especially kind of had them at the tail end of the season. But no, we're all the fortunate part. They're in the same situation we are. When we go tee it up and then try to play our best game.
So as you've watched Baylor since the game, do they still look like the same team? I mean, anything?
Well, they do. Well, seeing them bring the scoreboard up against the hard-playing defense a week ago certainly opened up your eyes, and a good win against Texas. And what you see is that skill players that can attack you in a number of different ways, both vertically and then obviously in the run game. The quarterback run obviously adds an element to it, and their ability to create the explosives in every way. Whether it's a perimeter screen, whether it's a deep ball shot, the run pass options off of so much of what they do really puts you thin you out defensively. And so you see a lot of same as to what we saw several weeks ago. But no, it just I think they would probably think they're a better football team 3 weeks later, and I certainly hope to think that we are.
Alex, after the Baylor game, you said that maybe you hadn't appreciated the ghosts that were still there from last year. I'm wondering, did the Baylor game help exercise some of those, or are you sensing that that's less of a problem as you guys stack good games on good games?
I think more and more, and I try to come up with the right word. Enjoyment maybe isn't one of them, but you see a group of guys on the sideline that are beginning to have a better understanding of the ebb and flow of what a Saturday should be like, and not default to the category of, well, hope things go well. And as long as the offense keeps scoring, then we'll probably be in okay shape, and not looking for some type of agreement where my performance at this moment, because of that scoreboard, my performance no longer matters. And so I feel like we've kind of worked through some of those things, and you're never immune to that, but just the communication from the guys on the sideline, obviously we're beating them kind of over the head with it, in terms of, and also seeing the results. There's 4 straight weeks where our final defensive play is the takeaway. Now, we got to stop waiting to the last play to get some of these, but in any event, it's we're getting more 3 and outs. We counted threes last week. So the answer is yes, but again, it's always a 1-game study, so you got to do it again this week.
Alex, you told us kind of with the turnovers that your hope was kind of 1 guy leads to 2, leads to 3. Now that you have that performance from Parnell, does that give you hope like that this could be kind of contagious for your defense?
Well, I think it is, and you saw the ball out more this past week than probably in any game over the course of the year. So does it speak to that? In some ways, I think that it does. I think it's also just an appreciation for when you take the field, you got 2 outcomes that you can obviously grind and fight for, either getting off the field in a kicking situation or get off the field with a takeaway. So I think there's just an appreciation for that as much as anything else. And so when you see 1 guy do it, I want to be like him. I mean, I think that's I want that outcome, and want to's part of it, and the next piece is obviously getting that thing done. But so no, that was real positive and excited for him.
On Parnell's strip, Buki had him wrapped up, and then Parnell comes in late. Is that exactly how you wanted that situation to go?
Well, I mean that's a pretty good example of one of the ways that team defense kind of applies to obviously eliminating gains, but also creating the takeaway aspect. I think first guy's got to secure it, has to. And then the second guy gets a chance to strip, the third guy gets the punch, or whatever sequence it goes in. And you see a lot of hats run to the football and give yourselves the chance to make some of those plays. So no, that's one way to create them. And it's probably the really indicative of just that. It's a creation. There was nothing in that play up until that point that would suggest it's a takeaway. Ball's coming back to Oklahoma. It was something that the ball just didn't find its way on the ground. And so no, I think that which goes back to why again we spend so much time. It's not a turnover, it's a takeaway, and then take ownership in our ability to create them.
Did you happen to look at tape of your guys from before you got here?
Very little.
Very little. I'm just wondering about Parnell. His growth, not just this year, but from 2 years ago, that game against Oklahoma State, he was benched. He had a really rough stretch and eventually got pulled from that game. You see him on Saturday night, and he's the best player on the field. Well,
and we all got history that, and some good, some bad, and ultimately what you try to do is put your best performers together every single week. What I do remember is him in spring football. What I do remember is some tough days out there, and then at times a willingness to not play with technique fundamentals and let days slip away from you. And so I think that's one of those things. Coach Manning does a great job with him, and we've had a couple of those days with him this fall. In fact, losing composure on the sideline in one particular game, and so in any event, you see the impact they can have. And so I think dialed into his technique, dialed into his fundamentals, playing hard, playing aggressive. And then I think you saw kind of what we think he can be, and that's something that he needs to be for us this week. It's a position of need for us in terms of from a depth standpoint, and so you need your best players to play their best at this stage of you're concerned about it's December football. You got the best players got to play their best games, and so we certainly need that from him.
You talked about baggage with Parnell, but most of your defense is young. How much easier is it from the coaching aspect whenever you have a bunch of young guys and you can kind of, get them in your own mindset?
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of it. I think, you like to have a whatever that percentage is, but a percentage of your roster that has game experience that they can draw from. They say, I've been in the arena, I've been on this stage, and some of that is including the negative side of things. I know what it feels like to not get the results that I want. And this is how I know I can increase my chances to get those results. So there's that fine line. I think every coach in general will say, give me the most experienced guys. But in a year's time, you're saying that we got to change mindsets and change behavior. But at the same token, we got to increase confidence in a lot of guys. I mean, we talked about 129 a long time. Thankfully, we haven't talked about that in a while. And so creating again a confidence, but saying, okay, well, the confidence comes from execution. And so, in any event, I think the audience was right in that regard, both young and old, because I think by and large every single guy wanted the results, and the nice thing is that we've had at least enough success this year that the guys can kind of draw from and say, okay, that's if we do X, Y, and Z, we got a chance to be successful.
Buki had his best game.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
I believe so.
What do you think about his development?
I thought he played aggressive. I thought again within the structure of the defense. I think we say do your job, do only your job, and cut it loose. And I think he's progressing that way, and then has an understanding. The number one attribute of really anybody in your defense is from a trust standpoint, and we trust him to get lined up and put himself in the position to not lose the snap before the ball is put into play. Now that's a pretty low standard for 11 guys, and you can't have 11 guys that way. But that's a starting point, and so he's been solid that way. With again the trust standpoint, that's why you see him out there as much. And then the next element of things is we need more guys being playmakers for us. But I thought they were aggressive plays. I thought they were aggressive tackles. And the commitment to be where I need to be when I need to be there. And it's funny how the ball finds you sometimes in those instances.
Alex, you coached in almost every Power 5 conference. What's the format of the Big 12 like in terms of difficulty compared to the others, having to play everybody and then a rematch, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's unique that way. I know one of the conversations that you consistently have in the other conferences is who do you miss that year, and whether it's crossover games in the SEC or same thing in the Big Ten and obviously in the Pac-12 as well. That's an element to your schedule, and those obviously those conversations don't take place, and so I think that's one, and I think it is unique knowing that as you go through the conference slate. One of these teams, if we're able to continue down and handle our business, and we're able to win games and find ourselves in a championship game, I don't know who it's going to be. At some point, we're going to have to play one of these guys again. I think that's just unique. In the other conferences, there's I don't know how it shakes out this year. How many teams are playing each other for a second time, but no, it's just a little bit more rare that way. But no, it's a quality conference, and you got to show up every single week to have a chance to win.
How beneficial is it that the core group of this defense has played in this game one or even two times before?
Well, I think that I'd like to hope that it is something that they can draw from. I mentioned to them being on, letting them know that being on the losing side of a championship game twice in the SEC, and you go back to we didn't play our best football, we didn't play our best game. The team that showed up the first 12 weeks didn't show up on that 13th week. Now again, the opponent obviously has a lot to do with that, but they get a vote as to outcomes and all those things. But you go back to that video, but did we play our best? And so I've reminded them of that, and because they don't have that moment to draw from, and sometimes you got to understand the other side before, just to assume you're going to go down there and have the same results. No, it's a different team in 2019 for Oklahoma. It's obviously a different opponent than what they saw in years past. So in any event, I think you've been on the stage, and I think at minimum you got to draw from that, but also have a respect for the fact that it's a new year, new opponent, and new circumstances.
You've rotated 3 corners for most of the season. Do you feel like you have a 4th guy that you think you can lean on at this point?
Not at this point.
David Agwebu and Nick Benito have really stepped up since John Michael Terry's injury. What have you seen of those two guys, and how big will they be going forward?
I think, like you said, stepping up. I think progress is being made. Young guys in the program. One's a redshirt freshman. One's a true freshman. Roles changed as the year has gone on. I kind of echo with a lot of positions on our defense. The baseline getting lined up. Okay, we got it. Let's not put ourselves in a bad spot where we're hurting the defense. Got it. Okay. Well, the next element of things is we only so if 3 or 4 guys just get lined up and they're where they need to be. Okay. Well, then you got X number of guys, less that are making plays for you. And so just across the board, I think that's one of the things from a progression standpoint. With the young guys, David and Nick being 2 of them, that TFL total, that tackle in space total, the sack total, all those things got to start climbing up as you get more comfortable and you get more game reps under your belt. And I thought you saw a little bit of that last week.
After the Baylor game, Jalen Hurts said that at halftime you had said to him that this would be a game that you told your kids about. I guess what inspired you to say that? Could you feel the comeback coming? Or?
Well, I think one of the things that you go back to is in that moment is you got 2 stories you can tell yourself. What was me and why is this happening, or let's go do something about it. And in the end, what it came down to is making sure, okay, let's go get 1 stop. Just get 1 stop. And if we get 1 stop, then we got a chance to obviously get the ball back to the offense, which we can start climbing back into that thing. But I think it's just a belief. I think it's a healthy respect for what took place, on 1 drive or 2 drives or a quarter or a half. Healthy respect to understand that, just because it happened doesn't mean it will happen again. And then conversely, understand, okay, well, if things can bottom out, they certainly can go to the mountaintop too. And so I think just from a coaching standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, I think it's always important to have Zoom focus on what's ahead of you as opposed to what's behind you.
Is that kind of similar to the message you told the whole defense too at halftime?
I'm sorry.
Is that kind of message the same as what you told the whole defense at halftime of that game?
Well, it was, and simply, the 3-and-out takeaway. Find a way to get a stop, and no evaluations, because the evaluations at that point are meaningless. Just as they're meaningless if you're up, 35-14, which at one point at halftime this year we've been. So you can't have it on both sides, and so you got to make sure that as best you can try to stay steady that way. But no, that's a continuous. That message never goes away, and that's not unique to one opponent or one game. Obviously, that one just was one of the extreme cases.
Alex mentioned, or